It is 4:30 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting of the Design Review Board to order. Recording Secretary, please call roll.
Thank you. Board Member Cook?
Here.
Board Member Huang will be absent. Board Member Liptak?
Here.
Board Member Weigel?
Here.
Board Member Wuthrich?
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon?
Here.
Chair Jones-Carter?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Huang.
Item 2, there is none. Item 3, approval of minutes. 3.1, November 7th, 2024 draft minutes. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? If there are no changes, then the minutes are approved as submitted. Recording Secretary, do we have any comment on item 3, approval of minutes?
If you are in the chamber and wish to make public comment, please make your way to the podiums. And I am seeing no one making their way to the podiums.
Thank you. Item 4, public comment. We are now taking public comment on item 4, non-agenda matters. This is the time when any person may address the board on matters not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of this committee. Recording Secretary, can you please provide instructions to the public?
If you are in the chambers and wish to make a comment, please make your way to the podium and please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes for your comment and a countdown timer will alert you at the conclusion of that period. And I am seeing no one making their way for public comment.
Public comment is closed. Item 5, board business, statement of purpose. The Design Review Board is charged with considering the location, design, site plan configuration, and the overall effect of proposed projects upon surrounding properties and the city in general. The board shall compare proposed projects to the general plan, any applicable specific plan, applicable zoning code standards and requirements, consistency of the project within the city's design guidelines, architectural criteria for special areas, and other applicable city requirements. Item 5.2, board member reports. Are there any board member reports? Thank you. Item 5.3 is none. Item 6, department report.
I do have a couple. Let's see, first, in case you missed the council meeting earlier this week or haven't heard otherwise, we have a new mayor, Mayor Mark Stapp, and we have a new vice mayor, Eddie Alvarez. I also wanted to give you an update on the landmark alteration revised process and the merging of the two Cultural Heritage Board and Design Review Board that you all reviewed back in November. We took it to the Planning Commission earlier this month. They added one more recommendation in addition to yours, requesting definition be added for qualified professional as it relates to the person that's writing a historic analysis. So we're working on that. They also supported the recommendation that the full council appoint the Design Review and Preservation Board members, that it wouldn't be individual council members doing those appointments. And let's see, they also supported the suggestion to prioritize training for those board members. The item is scheduled to go to the council. We're all very excited about this, actually, February 4th. And so I suggest that you tune in and listen. So that's it for me.
Can you clarify, you said that they also supported the council appointing, so can you say that again?
Yeah, they supported a recommendation that the council appoint all board members, not individual council members appointing board members. So giving it, I think, probably a larger pool to select from. So What I don't know is, I don't know who needs to reapply, and I don't know that process. So if you have questions about your own chair, I'd suggest reaching out to the city clerk. And also, nothing has changed yet. It won't change until the council does that. So I wouldn't get excited or concerned about that.
Question for you, Susie. If it does get approved, what the timeline for implementation? You know?
I think there's the first reading would be done on February 4th. And the only reason I know this is because my deputy director told me these dates earlier today. They've got a study session, they've got goal setting and budget review, and for the next couple of meetings, I think it would be the what's the 4th? 21st?
And I wasn't necessarily looking for specifics, just like a month or immediately or 6
It's
months.
second reading. in
Yeah,
30
so the
days.
second reading typically happens the very next meeting. The meeting after the 4th is the budget, goal setting. The one after that, there is no council meeting, so it'd be the 25th. If adopted, then it would go into effect 30 days after that second reading. And so just to answer the question on the appointments. So right now, as I think most of you know, each council member appoints you individually. Because the recommendation moving forward has changed based on the feedback that we received from all of you, 4 of the board members would be required positions, 2 architects, 1 landscape designer or architect, and 1 historic preservationist. The other 3 would be more at large. Because of the way that that's set up and required, it makes more sense to have the full council appoint rather than individual council members. So that would be the recommendation. That the requirement for how board members are appointed is in a council policy. So we'll be recommending that the council amend that council policy.
Does that also break the geographic distribution as well? People can be from.
So that actually
any
is
district?
not a thing right now. So board members can be appointed from any district. It does not have to be within their district.
Oh, interesting. I guess that was never.
Yeah.
Does make sense.
So I guess to tack on to that, Jessica, I guess it's kind of more like a slate of officers in a way, like to equate it to kind of like a board of directors or something like that. So the council would be appointing a slate of board members all at once, or would they do it as each position becomes available? Because
Well, yeah,
the
so I
terms
think
are on,
initially they will be appointing the full board. So any existing design review board members will need to reapply. Existing cultural heritage board members will need to reapply. So they will be seating a new board. And then, yes, after the fact, it will be as positions open up. So there will be an application process, and then there will be interviews with the full council, and then appointment at a council meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have public comment on item 5.2?
Thank you, Chair. If you are in the chambers and wish to make a comment, please make your way to the podium and please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes for your comment, and a countdown timer will alert you at the conclusion of that period.
I'm sorry, that was item 6. That was public comment, sorry.
Thank you.
Item 7, statement of abstentions. And item 8, none. Consent items and scheduled item, item 9. We are moving on to the first scheduled item, concept design review, Hansel Ford Service Building, whatever that says, 0 WILJAN, Court-DR24-049.
Thank you, Chair Jones-Carter, and members of the Design Review Board. The project before you today is a concept design review for the new service building for Hansel Ford located at 0 Wilgen Court. The proposal is to construct a new 13,770 square foot commercial truck service building for the Hansel Ford of Santa Rosa. The project site is located within the IL or light industrial zoning district, and the general plan land use designation is light industry as well. Within the light industrial district, the proposed land use, which is vehicle services, major repair / body work, requires an approved minor conditional use permit, and the project also requires major design review as it involves over 10,000 square feet. The parcel you see there with the star is located just behind the Hansel Ford dealership, which is all the way at the end of Auto Row on Corby Avenue. Here's the proposed site plan. On the southern half of the parcel, that's where the building will be going, and the parking lot configuration to the northern half of the parcel will remain unchanged. And there's new landscaping proposed around the parcel as well, which I will let the architect explain in his presentation. Here are the proposed elevations. The service bays will be accessed from the north. The east elevation that you see towards the right is what can be seen from the dealership side, and then the west elevation is what you see from Wilgen Court. And here are some renderings of the project. The siding, roofing, and the service bay roll-up doors will all be of metal. The Planning and Economic Development Department requests that the Design Review Board provide comments for the new service building for the Hansel Ford of Santa Rosa proposed at 0 Wilgen Court. And for any questions or comments, this is my contact information. The applicant has a presentation as well.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I feel like presentation is a very official term for what I have for you. It's really more just a couple of talking points. To start, thank you to the board for meeting with us today. I realize that we're in front of you guys because the building went over 10,000 square feet. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit in detail as to some of the reasons why we're under several constraints. Just to back up, the building is in partnership with Ford Motor Company, and it's being heavily subsidized by Ford Motor Company. In fact, the viability of the business relies pretty heavily on that subsidy. So we have some design constraints, hence the simplicity of the design. Also, there's some height requirements that are necessary in order to receive full subsidy from Ford Motor Company. And those height requirements are what pushed us over the 10,000 square feet. But as stated earlier, we're already in an industrial area. The lot that we're in is already parceled for a facility of this nature, and none of it will be customer facing. So we're hoping that it's minimalistic enough for the board. And that's all I had. Any questions about the actual design? Our architect is here.
Not yet.
Thank you, Roberto. Sean Montoya, architect. Thank you all for being here today. I do have a quick slideshow that I put together. Some of it's going to be redundant, but the main thing that I want everybody to look at first is that this property was divided, and we're not sure when. I think it was mainly for estate purposes, and this one parcel that the building is going to be going on is a separate parcel. So that is somewhat of an interest to us on how that all works. It looks like the improvements were done on the street and the landscaping was done around when that subdivision or that parcel split was occurred. The building, though, will be only accessed via Corby Avenue. there will be no access from Wilgen Court. And I don't know if Roberto mentioned this, but this service building is to provide a needed service so that large trucks, Ford trucks, can be serviced without having to travel long distances, which they do currently. And the reason why there's 14 bays is a requirement by Ford, and one of the things that probably isn't apparent is that with these large truck vehicles, if they go up for repair, they don't come back down until they're repaired. So even though there's 14 bays, some of them will be occupied for longer periods of time. Some of them will get, quick service, oil change, et cetera, but these vehicles, these large vehicles, are, once they're lifted, they stay until parts come. So I don't know the exact number, but I think as far as technicians go, I don't think there's going to be a lot more traffic occurring. It's mainly to make it better service than what they have now because of the constraints they have with the service bays that are currently on site. So if you go to the next slide, Nora, please. Yeah, so if you drove by there, you saw that there are improvements around. There's there's trees around. That inner fence will be gone. The fence on Wilgen Court is meant to stay, including the gate, though the gate will not be used. Employees will still be accessing from Corby Avenue, as will all service trucks. There will be no public customer-facing interaction at this building. It all will be done at the main building. Next slide, please. And there's a picture of what's there now. And if you've gone by there, you've seen it. Again, the main point is this will not be accessed. Nothing's really changing on this side other than we'll be adding some landscape around the building. Okay, next slide, please. And yeah, so I think we talked about that. That's the position of the building. You'll see is there are some storm drains, there's some drainage, and we want to make sure we're avoiding that. There was storm drains and sewer lines put in anticipation of this, so it's actually, it was very nice that it's already taken care of. Next slide, please. And that's just a little bit of an enlarged view. We are going to add some landscaping. We just have a very kind of generic palette right now. We didn't want to get too far into this. We wanted to get some input. We do provide accessibility, so someday if this property was carved out on its own, it would have accessibility to the sidewalk, and there'll be accessible parking as well. The building, besides the 14 bays, there is a little break room, bathrooms, one small office, and then there's a fluids room for all the oil and other fluids. Next slide, please. And we understand the need for a low-impact development design, and this is a very generic photo, but it's something like this that we'll put somewhere near, and we'll work with a civil engineer to come up with something, or landscape architect together to do some kind of vegetated swale or bioretention planter, depending on what's going to be required. Next slide, please. There again, there you can see the main floor. There is a mezzanine. We're going to have some parts there, fast-moving parts, and some of the parts that that they'll use on a daily basis. But some of them will need to be delivered, and there will be some deliveries that will come out there. But no customers, once again, will be going directly to the building. And then this 3D rendering, we tried to show some articulation on this side, although it really, Wilgen Court, I've driven up and down there. There isn't, I know there are some guidelines. The height, we tried to keep as low as we could, but there were some requirements by Ford with these large trucks as they're lifted. You know, they need a lot of room. Some of them have booms and other things on them. So our roof pitch is less than what's your guidelines discuss, but we did look at it at a higher roof pitch, and it got to be really, really tall and kind of out of proportion. So we're hoping that this is something that will be a good compromise. And go ahead, the next slide. Even though that is an entrance, it won't be, that's the entrance for the fluids. So the fluids will probably get, trucks will be delivered there, delivering fluids. But other than that, there will not be any customers coming to this area. The next one. And it's just generally, you know, it's going to be roll-up doors. And I think since we do have Ford as a partner, they like it to look like, and I don't disagree that it should look like a service building, and I think that's what it is. But I think that was the last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and we're certainly would like to hear your input. We're open to what you have to say, and that's all we have for right now, unless Roberto, we're all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to open public comment on this item. Recording Secretary, do we have any public comment?
If you are in the chambers and wish to make a comment, please make your way to the podium and please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes for your comment, and a countdown timer will alert you at the conclusion of that period. I am not seeing anyone making their way to the podium.
Well, public comment is closed. We can take questions from the board and then have a discussion. Start down here. Do you have any? No? Ernest? No. Ooh, Vic? No? Any questions? I should just ask that.
I just had a couple of quick questions. So obviously, the bays aren't going to be like air conditioned or anything, I imagine, but they may be heated. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole question.
Okay, so the service bays,
Yes.
right? I imagine they will not be air conditioned, but they might be heated in some way, correct?
Yeah, they're generally a space heater.
Okay, so just a little, so there's, I guess what I'm getting at is, so for the bay spaces, really that's kind of unconditioned space, but the office space and the break room and the bathrooms and whatnot, that's going to have some form of air conditioning system. And so I guess I'm curious where that might be located with respect to
Typically,
the
that
building.
size, we'd probably have some type of mini split system. So we would have, you know, like the little suitcases outside.
Yeah, so just in, probably outside behind it,
Yeah.
tucked away. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be anything on the roof, right? Because if you put one of those suitcases on the roof, then we have to put a screen up there for it, and that just seems like a whole bunch of effort for a little mini split. So that's why I thought I'd ask to clarify.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. But yeah, the mini split's what was intended.
Yeah, and then I guess the other question I have is I imagine this is a prefabricated metal structure, probably, you know, a la Butler Building kind of, and it's being generated by a prefabricated metal building manufacturer, and there's constraints within that. Is that correct?
Yes, it is
Okay.
going to be a metal building. And yeah, Butler's a generic term, but
Correct,
yeah,
yes.
it's going to be one of the manufacturers that would put this together. Mainly, it's fast, it's efficient, it's also probably the least expensive way to build a building like this.
Okay, perfect. I think those are the only questions I have because that impacts my comments. Thanks.
Vic?
Yeah, I like to listen to Drew's questions because they always remind me that, oh yeah, I was going to think about I'm sure there's various kinds of waste that's produced with truck repair. And I don't see anything for waste containment. I don't, you know, is that planned? Is it located? Where might it be?
I'm going to let Roberto take that one, but I generally speaking, the facility is going to act as one facility, even though it's a separate property, so any of that waste material they already are accounting for. I don't think generally we're not going to see a lot of additional waste because some of this work is done currently, it's just done early and late, and this is just going to, but I'll let Roberto.
I don't know if you want to come up here and talk a little bit about our waste management procedure. I brought our service director, and he can go a little bit more in detail. What I can guarantee, though, is that we'll follow all the same procedures to keep us compliant with the city and county, and we pay a consultant to come make sure that we're being compliant on a monthly basis because it's something we take very serious. But Andy can speak to the details of it.
Yeah, as Sean stated, on the one end of the building, is not going to be customers or customer area. It's going to be an oil room and a used oil room. So on one of the slides it showed that.
Vic, did that answer your question?
Well, so I think you're referring to the fluids room, so the used fluids,
Right.
including oil, would stay there until they were removed to wherever Hansel generally has its stuff. What about just like, trash produced by people? There's an office, there's a break room, there's a bathroom. How does that? Yeah, how does that
Right,
work?
obviously, like janitorial services, we already have that at our main facility, so they would just add that to their tasks. If that's what you're asking, those types of services we already have in place, so they would just add all these duties on top of what they're already doing for this new facility.
And I presume you've calculated that it's not such an extreme amount that you would have to change what you already have in the main facility for accommodating, right? I mean, it's 14 bays. It's not a lot of people. It's
Right.
big vehicles mostly, right?
To answer your question, no, we don't feel it's going to add, where we need to change, all these, garbage facility stuff, all that waste stuff that we do. No, we don't think it's going to produce more than what we already have.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
One question. For the landscape palette that popped up, I just wanted to confirm that wasn't in our packet. Is that, I don't see it on my plans. Okay.
Yes, it wasn't a part of the original submittal. It was added in later, so it's just in the presentation.
Yeah, and that's fine, but just wondering if where that came from, if that was just kind of examples, or if it was chosen like matching what's on site there already.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of these projects, and we find certain trees work, and they don't have root problems, and so it's a general. I had a brief discussion with the landscape architect we normally use. We don't have a landscape design yet, but we're certainly open. That was just kind of giving an indication that we're not going to do something crazy, different. It's going to be pretty much the standard stuff that all those trees and shrubs are listed on most of the low water use.
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely the familiar names. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
That's all.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ernest.
I just had a really general question about some of the floor plan layout, or just the intent. What is the intent of the locker room area?
So the technicians change in and out of work clothes on a daily basis. So we provide personal space for them to put their belongings in while they change into their work attire.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'd like to move on to comment.
Thank you, Chair. If you are in the chambers and wish to make a comment, please make your way to the podium and please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes for your comment, and a countdown timer will alert you at the conclusion of that period. And I am seeing no one make their way for public comment.
We're good. Thank you. Drew, would you like to start?
Sure, yeah, I only had a couple of simple comments for you guys. You know, it's a vehicle maintenance facility. It needs to look like a vehicle maintenance facility. It's a handsome vehicle maintenance facility. So good job on that. My only two comments would be, one, if the rendering you're showing is that it's going to be blue, and that's your plan, I would maybe reconsider that. And the reason I say that is in the design guidelines, it talks about light industrial parks and blah, 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 and matching adjacent facilities, right? So most of your adjacent facilities are gray or stucco or kind of off-white, right? So this probably should be gray or off-white or something along those lines, so it matches, unless there's some sort of overriding reason, perhaps from Ford, that says we need it to be Ford blue. And so when you come back to get your entitlement, I would mention that and say, hey, the requirement from Ford is that it needs to be Ford blue, or we're going to put giant Ford decals on this bad boy, or whatever it is. So I would just clarify that, because if this were the entitlement review component, based on the surrounding context, I wouldn't want this to be blue. It would stand out like a sore thumb. So that, and so I would kind of make that comment with the white as well, like the white windows and trim and whatnot. It's very contrasty in comparison to the surrounding elements. And then the only other architectural comment that I would give you is, you know, for long-term durability, especially since you have a, the high base side is facing north, there's no relief from the roof providing kind of eave or rake overhangs, and I would consider working with your metal building manufacturer to see if that's an option, because I think that providing a foot overhang on all 4 sides with that roof is just it's gonna make it less of a maintenance nightmare long term, so you don't have weird little water intrusion in that joint at the high peak, or you know, on the other sides from wind-blown rain and stuff like that, and it's just going to be an annoyance. So if you have and I'm pretty sure they probably just have a girt that extends that extra foot to do that. You know, so that would be my only kind of design aspect comment. Other than that, it looks like what it's supposed to be. So thank you.
I agree with Drew. It does look like what it's going to be, and that's good. That works out. My only comment is, and I don't know how much time whoever works in the office is going to spend in the office. That might have a window, so it might be, you know, like on the exterior wall. You know, you'd have to redraw it, but the janitorial room, for example, is on an exterior wall. It doesn't need a window, obviously. But, you know, maybe it's not important enough, but if you are in an office for any length of time, it is nice to have a window looking out, so that would require something. If you think about it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Sure. Great. Thank you for bringing this to us, and thank you, Planner Biesla, for your work. It's a nice looking industrial building. It's going to serve its purpose, and I think it'll fit in well with what you're already doing out there. So in that sense, it's great. No comments really on the architecture. My question before of the on the plant palette was going towards while this is kind of checking off boxes for the business and for Ford, you know, the constraints that you have, I'd encourage you where you have opportunities to have little bits of interest and little opportunities for interesting things that you can do. One, actually, I would I would counter Drew's color comments, just in the sense that I encourage you that you can make your case in a strong project description and design narrative for this the color. I mean, it goes counter to some of the design guidelines, but could provide some interest. And so before we throw that out, kind of consider that if it is a constraint from Ford, or if you're really tied to that blue, it could, there's opportunities. And I like the blue. I think having a splash of color in this area provides visual interest for this industrial area. So going to that for the plant palette, I don't want to complicate anything for you for when you bring a landscape architect on, but the layout and plans that you have look great. In terms of the palette, it's an opportunity, and I would suggest taking this to other projects too. Even a little kind of corner of a lot like this, you have an opportunity for providing either some habitat or some interest to passersby, to your workers, but then also an ecological benefit as well. Ecological benefits are great for the world, but also, could be a selling point for your project. And that can even be just, you have your layout here, but choosing local native species, pollinators, something like that. Potential little educational opportunity. Don't have to create anything to bring anyone in, but when you're choosing your 5 plant species, choose things that are a local native plant palette, and then emphasize that as well in your narrative. So other than that, looks great, and thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have 2 quick comments. In terms of the building itself, I have no issues with what's presented. It seems appropriate. Just as things are developing and kind of looking at some of the layout stuff that maybe could impact how some of the layout comes together, maybe height stuff. Just the response about, the locker room, and if we have male and female employees here, how that's going to be addressed in a single locker room, just a consideration as things move forward. And also just a consideration that if there is a mezzanine in this building, California doesn't have the vertical access exception in the CBC. So typically mezzanines need to be on an accessible route, which usually means that in new construction, a mezzanine requires an elevator. So if that is something that actually is required here, something to look into, it's part of our safety and health code, health and safety code, and it also appears in 11B. So just something to look at in case you need to do that. Usually the simplest solution is make it a second story, but that's all I got.
I think that's all the comments. Well, thank you very much for bringing this presentation to us, and hopefully the comments have been helpful for you. Something else to say?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for being here. I was remiss, I did not thank Noor, who's been fantastic to work with, and hopefully she continues to work with us on this project.
Right. Thank you very much for coming, and good luck. This meeting of the Design Review Board is now adjourned.